Welcome, guys, back to the I Love Wrestling podcast. I am your host, as always, Justin Woolwine. Today, we are welcomed with Kekoa. How we doing, man?
Always good, my man. How are you doing?
Blessed. Excited to have you on here, especially after going through your list of matches, accomplishments, things like that. You've had quite the career so far. I'm excited to dive into it with you.
Yes, sir.
Before we get started, is there any social medias, maybe upcoming events, things like that you'd like to let the fans know where they can see you and follow you next?
So I'm actually going to be in Louisiana this weekend for UEW. We're doing a benefit show. That'll be where I'm at this weekend. The biggest ones that the biggest two that I recommend to everybody is one, Pride of Wrestling. That's where you can find me consistently. That's currently in Tampa, Florida. And also, I might be a little biased, but I very much enjoy the student shows that we're having at House of Champions. I am not always on the events because they are more student shows, but I do involve myself in storylines if I feel like I can help in a certain way. Those are the biggest ones right now. I've been on and off with MCW for the for 2025 so far, and it looks to be I may be appearing more with All Caribbean Wrestling. I just did some TV tapings for them last month, so a lot of things are sporadic, but at least Pride, House of Champions, those are the two big ones that are always consistent with my calendar.
Okay. And then as far as like socials, where can they find you on social media?
Uh, so you can find me at Kekoa Pro on all socials: TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, which is Kekoa Pro.
That's good. Thank you.
Yes,
Uh,
sir.
as far as wrestling goes, we are the I Love Wrestling podcast. I want to know, when did you find wrestling and maybe what made you fall in love with it?
I don't know when the exact moment was because I was very young. But my mom tells me that my dad put me in front of the television when I was around like 3 years old, and that was pretty much it. Like that's all it took. I watched it growing up. I watched it all through middle school and high school. There was only like a brief moment. I don't remember how long. Maybe it was like a year or two where, not that I fell out of love with it by any means, but I just wasn't watching as much as I was. But I was still, even at that time when I wasn't watching wrestling as much, I was still doing backyard wrestling with all of my friends. So like again, I just never fell out of love with it. I never grew out of it as my mom thought I was going to, or my dad thought I was going to. So yeah, that's my that's how it all started though. All they had to do was just put me in front of the TV and that was it.
Who were some of maybe your favorites growing up?
Favorites growing up, definitely Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart. Um, I was a fan of a lot of different people as well. Like Shawn was definitely my number one. But I also loved a bunch of others just for who they were because they were different. Like I loved Tatanka, I loved the Big Boss Man, I loved the Road Warriors, I loved the Nasty Boys. Like I just like loved everybody. I loved everybody for their individuality. And then it wasn't until I started training to become a wrestler, and then I got smartened up on who I needed to study, who I needed to learn from. So then Ric Flair came around, and then Ricky Steamboat came around, and then Dusty Rhodes came around. Because on top of it, I was only a WWF kid growing up. I was so anti WCW because of the war that was going on. So um, even growing up, like I never turned it on, not even once. I was just like, no, WWF is my pride and true. So I had a lot of catching up to do when I did get trained to be a wrestler, and then I started tape studying and learning about the business. So I had a lot of catching up to do.
What made you decide to jump in and start training?
So I always knew that I wanted to be a wrestler. I I grew up knowing I wanted to be a wrestler. Again, around that time when I stopped watching wrestling a little bit, there was this question of like, all right, am I going to play baseball? Am I going to play basketball? Like, what am I going to actually pursue? But I think that was only because I was being influenced by my parents to do something else because they, again, either they were waiting for me to grow out of it or they just didn't see like, a future or a career with it. And, but then at one point, to make a long story short, I had gotten in the ring for the first time. There was a gentleman by the name of Bud Carson who had his own pro wrestling memorabilia shop in Allentown, Pennsylvania. And I got invited to go check out his building, and he had a ring in the back of his building, which is actually where the Wild Samoans were training at the time. Afa was still up north at that time before he had moved to Florida. That was years later. But yeah, so the Samoans were training out of there, out of Bud's building, and I got to get in the ring. And the first time I stepped into the ring, and I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was just fate, destiny, whatever it was. But when I got inside the ring, I still remember this. Like I grabbed the rope, like I grabbed the top rope, and then it was just something in me was like, this is the coolest thing ever. Like it felt like there was like this feeling like in me that like my mind was made up from there. Like I had already knew that it was what I wanted to do, but again around that time it was like, well, I might do this other stuff, I'm not sure. And then that was the moment where it was cut off and it was like, nope, this is it. So soon after that moment, I want to say like a year, maybe a year later, Bud had decided to start his own wrestling school because the Samoans had ended up moving out of that building. I don't remember where exactly they moved to at the time, but they moved out. So then Bud decided to start his own school, and then rest was history. I had to sign up.
Okay. Did you get like any experience training with the Samoans?
Not with the Samoans specifically,
Okay.
because they were already gone.
Okay.
It's a much different world now than it was. This is dating back to 2006, 2005, 4, 2006. That time period.
Okay.
Because back then, the Samoans and just pretty much any school, it was around like $4 or $5,000 for training, and you either had to have the full amount up front or at least half to start.
Okay.
Now everything, we have Klarna and we have we have all of these things. We all have these like subscriptions and memberships where we can pay monthly. That didn't exist in 2006. That when or 2005, 2004, none of that existed. The business was completely different. It was a lot more. It was still cutthroat, not as much as the old school of my old school days before me, but it was still in that transition process of like, no, these, like, we still follow these rules, and that was one of them. It was just pretty much set. Like every school was about the same price, and everyone needed their money up front because it was a business at the end of the day. Uh, so yeah, I didn't have that opportunity to train with the Samoans whatsoever, but I have wrestled for them for many years. They were running WXWC4 out of Allentown, Pennsylvania. So I've wrestled for Samu for years. When I came to Florida, I wrestled for Afa as well. Obviously before he only just recently passed. But yeah, very grateful for my time that I have gotten to learn from them, and I've learned a lot.
Okay. You know, I noticed around 2007 you did some work with the NWA.
Mm-hmm.
What was your experience like working with them then? And do you think it would probably be different now, seeing how it's a uh, completely different promotion as to what it was then?
Yeah, I mean, I think you know, Greenhorn, young Kekoa
Mhm.
enjoyed being able to like check it on the resume that I wrestled under the NWA, banner. Was it the old NWA? No. Um, do I think that the current NWA is better? Oh yeah, it's 100% better than what it was in that period. But I think it's just a completely different. like it's its own thing now. Like
Yeah.
it's not like they try to keep some of the nostalgic of the old NWA, which I do appreciate, and I really love the look of those arena, like the arena shows that they have, or the studio shows that they have, excuse me. Um, but my experience at that time, again, I was only like a year, I was only a year in, so I was getting the crap kicked out of me. Which of course, like, I don't care. I'm a wrestler now. Like I've just now accomplished the dream. Like I just want to be out there and I want to wrestle and I want to get out everywhere that I could. Um, but when you ask the question of like, what was your experience like? Like yeah, I obviously wanted more, but I understood, I was a very small kid at the time. I was a very new kid at the time. And, it just it was what it needed to be at that time. But of course, like I appreciated every opportunity that I got with NWA, of course.
In 2010, you made an appearance for Superstars, where you took on Kurt Hawkins and Lance uh, Archer
Yeah.
at the time. How did that come about? Was it something that WWE reached out to you, or did you send your stuff in to them? Like, how did that happen?
A little bit of both. I was recommended by someone from WWE to come in. Um, so I remember that's how it started. And then at that time, WWE was calling you out of Connecticut. Um, and Originally they called me because they had an idea for me for Monday Night Raw. Um, I was Maurice's jujitsu trainer in an empty ring segment. We filmed this before the doors opened. So the next night when they were filming Superstars and SmackDown, because it was always on Tuesdays, um, they didn't want to use me for TV because they were like, your face was just plastered all over Raw last night, so like we're not going to use you for tonight. And I go, yeah, no, I completely understand. But then this one kid that was going to be in that tag match, they had found out that he had only had like 5 matches under his belt at that time. He was just a good looking kid. Like he was in great shape, much better shape than I was at that time. And that's why they were going to use him. Well, he's only got 5 matches under his belt, and they looked at everybody else that they had booked for those days, and they were like, well, yeah, we don't have a choice. We got to use this kid again. Um, so I was fortunate to be in that match specifically. But funny story on WWE calling me. So again, at the time, um, when I had worked for WWE previously. Like I was booked as an extra, a couple times, and her name is slipping my mind right now. Man, her name is slipping my mind right now. But the lady that I have her in my phone because it's still in there. But it was the same lady that was essentially like the office lady for talent relations that would call and book the extras and so on and so forth. And I was very much used to getting a call for like at least a month out or something of that sort. And I got a call really late on a Friday night while I was at a show, and they're like, "Oh, this is so and so from WWE," and I was like, I don't know who's ripping me," and I just hung up on him. And then I hung up on him, and I didn't say anything else. And then I got a call back about 2 minutes later, and they're like, "Hi, it's this lady again. Like we must have got disconnected." So I still thought it was a joke. Like I thought someone was playing a joke on me. So I was like, "Yeah, no, yeah, it must be like bad connection." And then she's like, "Okay, so I have some questions. Like, do you have like a martial arts background or anything like that?" And then I quickly realized, like, that is her, because also when they called you, the number was always restricted. It was always from a restricted number.
Okay.
Even with cell phones, like it would just say, unavailable or restricted number,
Unknown,
whatever.
restricted.
Yeah,
Yeah.
unknown. Yeah. So that's another reason why I'm like, I don't know if someone's pranking me or if it was legitimate, but I quickly learned like, oh, it's legitimate. And then it's funny to look back of like, yeah, I hung up on WWE when they were trying to call me.
Um, Somewhere like really interesting in wrestling is Combat Zone Wrestling. They're
Yeah.
known for death matches, insane moments, all that stuff. Was that ever somewhere you wanted to compete maybe on a regular basis?
Um, I wasn't sure because I've wrestled two matches for combat,
Yeah.
and I didn't know if that was my place, but also at the time I was doing a lot of shows with DJ Hyde, and I I don't want to speak for DJ by any means, but I feel like the time that he was giving me when I would talk to him at these independent shows outside of CZW, I felt like, again, maybe he could sense like this is somebody that really wants to shoot for the moon, and he was giving me the time of day. Um, so DJ was actually the one that helped me like get overseas and go on tour. And I very much appreciated that. And then that's where I think all of the, well, what do you think about coming into CZW? And I don't remember much about how that all happened, but I vividly remember my two matches. I faced Ricky Reyes, um, my first match in the arena, and I just greatly relied on Ricky because I'm like, I don't know what this is a completely different audience. Like this is something completely out of my element of what I'm used to. I don't know what will get a reaction here, what won't get a reaction here. So I'm like, I just need you to just tell me what to do. And he was like, okay, yeah, just listen. And he put everything together. And at the end of it, after my debut, I started getting a chant, please come back. And I was like, that's awesome. And I was like, okay, maybe I have something here. So then I got booked again for an iPay-per-view. I forget what it was called, but we were in. I remember being in Jersey, and I remember being on a hockey rink, and I think that was like that show specifically. I think my mind was made up of like I don't know if this is my spot because the very first match, I think it was like Shane Strickland and maybe AR Fox. I just remember two guys going out there and just tearing the house down in match one, doing some of the most athletic things that I've ever seen wrestlers do and getting falsy after falsy after falsy. And I'm just like, they're the first match. Like, what the fuck am I going to do? I'm like, pardon my French if I'm not allowed to curse, but
You're all
um,
right.
I just like, I didn't know. I was like, what am I going to do? Um, and then it was just so weird. Again, just different environment, different fan base. Um, the original diva, Sunny, was going to be my manager that night. So I come out with Sunny and they start chanting, "We want Sable," because the fans are just ruthless. And I was like, oh, of course. And like, we're supposed to be the good guys. And then Pepper Parks comes out, or well, he's Blade in AEW now. And his wife, well, she was Cherry Bomb, now she's Bunny, but they come out. That's my opponent. And they're cutting a promo. It's his debut on CZW, so no one really knows who he is. So he doesn't really have heat. So gets on the microphone to try to get heat, and then I remember having to call Cherry a trash bag whore, and then I got a face pop, and then the fans were starting to get behind me, and I don't think we really like we didn't have a bad match by any means. Like I definitely remember going like we did what we called, we did what we planned, but I remember just, again, like they didn't really know who I was. It was only my second match. They didn't know who he was. And they had just seen everything under the sun from, matches before. Um, but then I'm also seeing, like funny spots of, I mean, I forget his name off the top of my head, but he would do like the Eddie Guerrero dive over the top rope, but he would do it in slow motion. And then he would just like kind of roll on them. He's in AEW, man. His name is just
Orange
blanking in my,
Cassidy?
no, it's not Cassidy.
No.
Damn, damn, my mind is terrible with trying to remember on the spot. But regardless, like he got a great reaction from that move. And then again, I'm just like, man, they just saw everything under the sun in that first match. Here's this like goofy spot that's getting a great reaction. I'm like, it would have taken me a lot of time to understand what that fan base would have liked or what have they disliked. And I don't remember if it was me then just going like, I don't want to be here, or if it was a combination of like this DJ just didn't have a spot for me. I don't remember, but I remember that being my last match, and I wasn't upset about it. I was just like, yeah, you know what? Like, I just don't think that's my avenue. Um, so I appreciated my time, but I just didn't know if that was going to be my wheelhouse, essentially.
Okay. You mentioned going on tour overseas. Where are some of the places you've been able to travel and wrestle?
So I was very fortunate that I got to wrestle for All Star Wrestling, which, if anybody doesn't know who All Star Wrestling is, um, if you listen to interviews with William Regal, Brian Danielson, um, Wade Barrett, they all talk about, um, Brian Dixon. Brian Dixon was the owner of All Star Wrestling. Everyone does the Brian Dixon impression. Um, and it was just it was the number one spot to go wrestle for in the UK. And Brian had these contracts with this vacation spot called the Butlins, and basically we were just the traveling entertainment. So the way that I always explain it to everybody is think about going to Universal Studios or Six Flags, and all of a sudden you see a wrestling show. Well, that was what we were doing. It wasn't like a wrestling show. They just needed some sort of entertainment for the families that were vacationing at these spots throughout the week. So we would just tour all over the UK. I went to Scotland for a little bit. I was supposed to go to Germany, but then my flights changed, or something happened there, and I ended up not going. Um, but yeah, I was there. I got to go, and honestly, when I talk to my students or anybody about what there's certain points in a career where you feel like you've elevated your game to a different level, and without a doubt, that tour completely changed me after when by the time I got home, because I was doing 2-3 matches a day in that entire tour, 5-6 days a week. So the amount of experience I got on top of it, phenomenal. Like you can't ask for a better situation than that.
That's incredible. What are some of the biggest differences maybe between uh crowds and locker rooms as like overseas opposed to here?
So biggest one, and it's there was when I was coming up in the business, when I was getting trained, my trainer said, "Here is a list of rules of do's and don'ts that you do in the business." And when I started wrestling the indies in America, I realized, I'm like, man, these rules that he talked about, like, they don't really exist. Like, for instance, one was a heel always calls the match, always puts it together. A heel is the person that's supposed to do that. And then I start wrestling on the indies, and I'm like, it's not really that. Of course, I'm listening to everybody because I'm the green kid, and everyone has more experience than me, so I have to listen to the veteran of this match, or the veteran of whatever match I'm in. But it was always like 50-50, or at least 75-25. It was never like 100% heel, or 90% majority heel, and then they ask you like one or two things or something like that. It was always a very good blend. And then I got overseas, and a lot of these old school rules that I was taught, um, that I thought like didn't exist. Well, it did exist in Europe. Um, it did exist in the UK, and I got a tremendous amount of heat on that tour because I just didn't know better, and I just kept making mistake after mistake after mistake, and I honestly didn't have that intention of making those mistakes. I was a young kid, and I had to figure a lot of things out on my own, and there wasn't really like this. It was also like a test. Like the business is a lot more thoughtful and giving now, and inclusive, and that's there's positives and negatives to that. But I grew a lot as a person and as a performer by getting in trouble and learning from those mistakes, because one of the first nights that I was there, I remember one of the guys said, "You're going to start this match with this other heel in the main event." We were doing like a 4-on-4 tag match, and they go, "You two are going to start because you don't have a match earlier tonight. Um, so just get with him and figure out how you want to start the match." And that's how it was worded to me. So again, I'm still not picking up on like the a heel is going to tell me what to do. So in the walk to his locker room, I thought of an idea of like how to start the match, and I said, "Hey, how's it going? Like, you and I are going to be starting." This guy told me to come up with an idea, for us to start. I had this idea. If you don't mind, that I pitch it. And he goes, "Go ahead," and he lets me do it instead of kind of smartening me up right then and there, right? Which is, again, however he wanted to handle it. But I pitched the idea. He goes, "No, like that's perfectly fine." And then somebody ended up telling me once I walked out of the room, they were like, "Who the fuck is this kid? Like, who does he think he is?" Because I didn't know better. But again, it's stuff like that of just like no one's there. It was until way later, then that's when I started getting smartened up to a lot of these things, and then I'm like figuring out, I'm like, man, like why is everyone being a little harsh on me? Like, what did I do? Like, what's going? You know what I mean? Like, what's going on? But I wouldn't have traded. I like even if you were to ask me, like, would you go back and fix all of those things? No, because man, like that molded me so much after that. Like that really tested me. Um, and I was very appreciative of how much trouble I got in. It really was.
Was it like an example of like me learning from mistakes? Hey, I made these mistakes, but now I can take those experiences and see how they were kind of negative and then turn them into positives moving forward.
Not necessarily turning them into positives, but just like, maybe that's why I'm a coach now, because
Okay.
I've made my share of mistakes, and I've never had Big Brother put his arm around my shoulders and go, stick with me, kid. Like I'll protect you and I'll tell you why this is good, why this is bad. Man, I was just figuring out all my own, and
Okay.
I've made a shit ton of mistakes. And again, like some of them weren't even mistakes. Some of them were just like, you know what? Like I was just getting hazed, and maybe it was another test from the boys. Like so for instance, while I was on that tour, I remember like some of the guys got upset because like I didn't want to do ring crew. And I didn't say like, oh, I don't want to put up the ring or tear down the ring. Nobody wants to do ring crew. Nobody enjoys carrying around heavy boards and heavy, you know what I mean? But I was
Yeah.
doing it. I never said out loud like I refuse to do this. Like I'm gonna do it, but I'm not looking forward to it. It's just like my workouts. I hate working out. I'm gonna do it. You know what I mean? Like I would rather just sit on my couch and play video games. But I remember like that got me a little bit of heat of just this like, oh, this kid doesn't want to do ring crew. Like, oh, he just, and so it was something like that. And then another time, this is when I was touring with Robbie Brookside at the time, and he is, one of the NXT coaches currently. Robbie is like one of the most famous wrestlers in the UK. Like he has a historic career, and when we got finished putting up the ring, one of the guys said, "We're going to take the van and we're going to head to the grocery store to get some food. Do you want to come?" And I go, "Yeah." And then I went to get another one of the guys, and then he asked me who's driving, and I know who's driving the van. It's Frankie. It's Frankie Sloan, who was Robbie's tag team partner for years. But I couldn't think of his name off the top of my head. Like we've already shown a couple times on this episode alone, names just disappear from my brain. Like my brain doesn't work right. So his name was on the tip of my tongue, trying to say and I know it's Frankie. We've been on tour now for a couple weeks. Like I know who he is, but I use the expression. I'm like, I was like, what's his face? What's his face? And then the veteran of the group was like, what's his face? That's Frankie fucking Sloan. Like, how fucking dare you like disrespect him like that? I'm like, I'm not saying what's his face as if I don't know who he like I know who he is. It's an expression because it was on the tip of my tongue. But again, it was just another thing of like, all right, I
Okay.
said something dumb, it got taken the wrong way, I got in trouble. And then it was like to the point then I just kept accidentally saying the wrong things to the point when we were in the van, I put my headphones in and I just sat there and I was like, I don't want to fucking talk to anybody because I keep getting in trouble. And then that got me in trouble because they're like, oh, this kid's putting his headphones in. He doesn't want to be part of the boys and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I can't win. I can't win. But I learned, now I can tell all these kids how dumb I was when I was younger and how much stupid shit that I did and why I am a coach and why I want to guide these kids to not be the same idiot that I was, even though I didn't even mean it. I didn't know. I didn't know better.
So are those things that you obviously tell the trainees, not to do, but do you also try to maybe teach them a different way of how to be handled or handle yourself in a locker room?
Well, I always, praise professionalism and how to carry yourself. Like I do give them, the foundation of what they need. As far as maybe teaching them differently, um, it's not fair to punish someone that didn't know.
Yeah.
It's not fair to look at somebody and think that whatever they're doing is out of malice, unless there's a pattern and that's something different. But there's a lot of times when I have to stop practice and I go, "Did you hear what this person just said?" And I'm like, and I'm not picking on you. I'm not like I never punish. We don't punish any of our students. But I stop and I go, "Did everyone hear what he just said?" And I go, "I'm going to tell you why what you just said was wrong, how it's going to be taken by others, and how we're never going to say that again." And there's moments like that where I have to stop practice to make them understand, like, oh, like coach is serious. Like that thing that he just did, he's completely stopping practice. It's not like a quick like, hey, don't say that. It could look bad and then move on. Like he's stopping practice to make sure that everybody at practice knows what he said, why it's bad, and to never do that again because that'll cost you bookings, that'll blackball you from companies. You know what I mean? It might cost you opportunity. Could cost you everything. Who knows? So that's my style. That's my method now of just making sure you better know the severity of what you just said. Because if you don't, then sooner or later, you're going to say the wrong thing and you're going to get in trouble like I did.
Okay. Something fun on the channel I try to do is when I'm looking through your guys' career, um, obviously you guys face a plethora of great talent in this industry, but I picked five of them that maybe I'm most interested in as a fan to hear about your experience working with them. So I'm gonna just not run through, but I'm gonna go through the list. If you want to
Yep.
just tell us what that experience is like, it'd be great. I'm gonna start with one, Jonathan Gresham.
So Jonathan Gresham was phenomenal to work with. Um, he has a completely different style, as everybody knows, and that was a true test for me to go, okay, can I keep up with him? Can I keep up with him, and can I adapt to what he's asking of me? Because I knew it was going to be a challenge for me, and I haven't watched that match in quite some time, so I might look at it with different eyes now, but I remember walking out of that match feeling very good. So it wasn't terrible, but I remember being really proud of myself after that one.
Okay. Up next, I got down Adam Cole.
So
It's a very
I
different
wish,
Adam Cole than what we know too.
yes and no. I mean, I've known Adam a long time. I wish that we were as close as we were. Just life, just
Yeah,
takes you in different directions, and but man, yeah, we were really close. Like, even at one point, like, uh, me and my girlfriend at the time, and his girlfriend at the time, like we went and spent, a day in New York City, like during Christmas and stuff like that, just to hang out with each other and spend some time with each other and stuff like that. So And I was always trying to get him booked on shows that I was doing because I'm like, man, I just want to work this guy every single chance that I can get because he's going to make me better. Um, excuse me. So I have nothing but love and respect for Adam every time that we see each other. I love giving him a big hug, and I'm so proud of the career that he's had. Um, and I use Adam as another example that I tell people. And it's a little bit harder now because he's a big star, and not as many people get to be around him. But um, Adam is one of the nicest people on this planet. And at one point, I heard someone say, "I don't like Adam Cole. I hate Adam Cole," and that absolutely shocked me because I didn't think that that was possible. And then that was a lesson for me of like, it doesn't matter because again, I put Adam on that pedestal. Like, it doesn't matter if you could be the nicest guy in the world. Sooner, like, not everyone's gonna like you. And then that was a new lesson for me of like, don't worry so much if someone just doesn't vibe with you because like if you can't vibe with Adam, like brother, there's something wrong with you. Like he's such a good dude. But yeah, no, I loved everything that I've ever gotten to do with him.
Next, I got somebody who's very close with Adam Cole, Matt Taven.
So Taven and I, we definitely always, well, he at least makes me feel like he always remembers me. Like we've only had I think two matches against each other.
Okay.
I know we did one in New York for Dynasty Wrestling, and oh no, I don't think I faced him. I don't think I faced him again. I think I just worked a show with. I think I worked NCW with him, and that was finally like another time that I got to see him. I could be wrong, but either way, Matt's always been cool with me. Um, I remember really enjoying that match, and then soon after that, that's when he started finding his success as well. Um, I don't remember too much of the match though, but I just do remember like it brought us together. So always appreciate that.
Okay. And next, I got a young swerve at this time named Shane Strickland.
So I remember that how much I appreciated that. I was trying to be a heel at the time, and I remember being I think it was a triple threat match with Greg Excellent. I think it was in Maryland. I think it was for ACW. Um, but I remember um him willing to do like I think he did a springboard to me, and then I drop kicked him out of the air. I think that's what the move was. But I just remember how great he made it look. Like, of course, I got to throw the kick, but how you sell it is what's going to make it. And I remember him making me look good in that moment. I don't remember much of the match, but I remember how appreciative I was of him a lot. Being okay and willing to do that for me. So I still remember and appreciate it.
Okay. The last guy I got on the list is somebody I've never had somebody on here that's faced them. So
Wow.
I got Joe Gacy.
Mm. So Joe and I have done so many shows together. I haven't talked to Joe in quite some time. I don't honestly, I don't think I've talked to Joe since he's been signed.
Okay.
So it's been many, many years. But my experience from that match specifically, I remember that Joe's knees were so banged up at the time. Like I think he needed surgery. So I just remember um not having to not having to carry the load in that match by any means. The match was perfectly fine, but I just remember like me being very cautious because I knew how banged up he was, and I didn't want to make it any worse than it already was. But I do remember also that was in um, that auto auction place in Delaware. I think it was for one CW or it might have been 302 Wrestling, whichever banner it was under. And I'm pretty sure it was during the fall or the winter months when there's no heat in that building and the rain feels like absolute concrete, which I absolutely hate. Um, So I remember like the combination of like, I hate the cold, I hate this ring right now, and I'm so worried about his knees. Like I hope he's gonna be okay. And I remember it going fine, but yeah, I haven't talked to him in quite some time.
For a good portion of your career, you did work in MCW, which we've mentioned once,
Mhm.
and then ECWA. Um, what do those promotions mean to your career? Seeing how you've spent a lot of your career in them.
ECWA was the first company that I would say I felt true validation. Like I've had, or I don't know how to phrase that correctly. I had success in other companies previous to ECWA, but ECWA's name then carrying over, then like when I got to be part of that roster and then get to do what I got to do, that to me started giving me the validation of like, okay, maybe there is something bigger for me, I'm not too sure. And obviously, like, I was able to be the heavyweight champion. And then I tore my ACL, and then I had to drop it. And then after that, my relationship with ECWA, um, it didn't go well after that, unfortunately. Just the owner of ECWA at the time, I thought was a terrible businessman. Um, I think he just kind of fumbled the company after, like, not because I had to drop the title and because of all that, but like overall he was making a lot of decisions throughout my time there that it just kind of like it just wasn't going well, and that's why he ended up selling the company because it was kind of tanking. But um but I was very appreciative of ECWA and like what that kind of did for my career as well, because like I got a lot of uh, publication out of that, features in Pro Wrestling Illustrated, and just being able to be in the Super 8, so on and so forth, and just getting my name with all of these, greats. Um, MCW was the next, like, very kind of similar instance where uh, there's some companies that I just kind of got whether they just believed in me or whether I was just the best one of that company, which, maybe, I don't want to, I don't want this to come off the wrong way, but like sometimes it's been a little too easy in some companies to get pushed to the top.
Okay.
So that's why I say ECWA was a validation, because it wasn't like an overnight thing. It was a slow grind to that top, and so was MCW, and earning a spot at MCW meant a lot to me. And now after, RJ or Bruiser, whatever people might know him as, um, hearing these stories about how much he went to bat for me to bring me on to MCW, um, really then made me go like, holy crap, like this was like, it just made me appreciate so much more of like what I've been able to accomplish at MCW, and then being there and getting to do the things that I got to do. Um, it just kind of gave me that validation again of like, because I think all of us as wrestlers at some point we just kind of question ourselves of like, are we as good as people might say? Is this all a smoke show? Because I've seen a lot of people get pushed to the top of companies that are not good. So then you kind of question it of like, am I different? Am I not as good? It's always it's that imposter syndrome essentially. But there's been certain times, that you kind of feel like, okay, maybe I do have something here, and MCW was one of them.
Okay. Well, while working with MCW, you participated in like a joint show with Ring of Honor. Um,
Mm-hmm.
what was that experience like having Ring of Honor and MCW kind of work together?
Unfortunately, not good. Um,
Okay.
Like um I had when I had tried out for Ring of Honor before I tore my ACL. So this is dating back a couple years prior to what you're asking. And they were interested in me, but we needed to work on some things, which I agreed with. And then after I came back from my ACL injury, um, I was trying to work on being the person that they wanted me to be. So I never went back to Ring of Honor to try to show them like, hey, this is what I have now, because I wanted it done and polished, ready to go to say this is who I am now. I was still trying to figure out that this new me. But then fast forward to these dojo shows, or not, no, it wasn't a dojo show. What the heck did they call it? Um I forget what they called it, but the Ring of Honor shows that you're mentioning. Um so I was MCW champion at the time, and they said, "Hey, we're going to use the MCW title as the ROH title of this show." Man, I really forget what the freaking name was. But they were like, "You're going to be like our champion essentially," because they're like, "We don't have a title. We're partnered with MCW. Since you're the MCW champion, you'll just be the champion of these shows." And I went, "All right, dope." And then I did a couple shows for them, and I just never got feedback, or um I never got invited to, like, hey, we let's try you out on one of our main shows now. Like there was never anything close to that. And everybody that I should have heard from was always at those shows. So then you could flip the script and go like, okay, well, why didn't you ask why you weren't getting feedback? Well, by the time that happened, COVID hit. By the time that happened, COVID hit and the world was shut down. So, and then Ring of Honor went bankrupt, and then Ring of Honor was sold to AEW. So you could argue that and go like, well, why didn't you? But I also think that there's a certain amount of time that you have to give yourself and others to go like, okay, am I delusional here? Like, should I wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt as well, to figure out like, well, what the heck is going on, and why isn't anyone having a conversation with me as your champion? Even though, like, I get it, like, you didn't pick me as the champion. I was, delegated because I'm the MCW champion. So I get that. But I was looking at other people that were getting opportunities, and I go like, all right, I know I'm better than that guy. So what the hell is going on? I just didn't know. I didn't have the answers. But like I said, COVID hit, um, and the world got shut down. And then I gave my title to Bruiser while he was passing, and then I wasn't champion anymore, and then Ring of Honor was gone anyway, so we never went back to it. So it was what it was, but I didn't enjoy my time as with those joint shows.
Okay. How did COVID change indie wrestling?
Um, I don't think it did.
Okay.
Um, what I do think though, it just proved who is an independent wrestler and who is a professional wrestler. And for anybody that's ever heard me talk about this on a podcast or an interview before, I think that there's a big difference. Unfortunately, we're all under this independent bubble. And it doesn't matter if you're, Pancho Pete that wants to wrestle in his hometown once every other month, or, 4 times a year or something like that, and you want to just do this as a hobby. There's a spot for you. You know what I mean? Like, go ahead, brother. Like, go get it. Like, go chase for it. Um, I Anybody that would ask me that, of like, man, I don't want to be like a WWE wrestler. I don't want to do this full time. I just want to have fun every now and then. I just want to have like a goofy match or a one off match every now and then. Brother, go do it. Go chase it. If that's what you want to do, go chase it. But we're mixed with the same people that are trying to make this a career. And the similarities that I tell people when I get upset about being grouped together with independent wrestlers because I consider myself a professional is, imagine if Kobe Bryant had to go play at LA Fitness with people that just want to play a little pickup ball in between their gym, you know what I mean? Or if guys from the NFL went and joined a beer flag football league, like it's not the same league.
No,
It's not the same comparison. It's people like these are athletes that are dieting, training, doing everything that they can to be the best version of themselves. And then we got these other guys that show up in sweatpants, dirty shirts, drinking Red Bulls, smoking a pack of cigarettes, smoking a whole pack of cigarettes before their match, and then 30 seconds into their match, they're blown and they can barely do anything good or safely or effectively. We're all mixed together, and COVID was going to expose who was going to make excuses that the world is shut down and I let myself go, and the other people that said at some point the world's going to come back, the world's going to open up again, and I don't want to be struggling. And that's all that COVID did, in my opinion. It just exposed who really wanted it and who is a true professional, in my opinion.
that makes sense. Uh, you know, what would you say has been your favorite match or maybe even moment of your career so far?
That's impossible to answer,
Okay.
because like there's so many moments that are cool for different reasons that all
Hmm.
mean a lot to me. So for instance, like somebody that I grew up with, um, his name is Chad. We grew up in elementary school, middle school, high school together. We did backyard wrestling together. We used to go to independent shows after high school. We would walk down into town, and we would get tickets to go to this independent show, and we would sit front row and watch. Him and I got to face each other in that same building for that same company. So like that was a cool full circle moment for me. Um, so it's stuff like that. I've had retirement matches for Aiden Chambers, Matt Saigon, um, Ryan McBride. Like being able to retire my friends and being awarded the honor of saying, if I'm going to go out, I want it to be with Kekoa. Like that's such a huge honor, you know. Um, so it's those moments too. And then like yeah, my first match on WWE, cool. Like um, going overseas, my first overseas match, yeah, cool. Like being able to get in the ring with Adam or all these guys that we listed, yeah, all of those are cool. Um, I wrestled Kenny King, a month ago for All Caribbean, and that was a full circle moment for me because I got heat from Kenny for my first Ring of Honor match. To make a long story short, I accidentally used his finisher, which was my finisher, but I didn't know it was also his finisher. But he was waiting at the curtain, ready to yell at me, and then I said, "Well, I told that guy, the agent, what my finisher was, and he said no, I could use it." So then the heat went to that guy, but I fully remember that moment. That was like in 2008 or something like that. And then when I saw Kenny King, a month ago, he didn't remember me specifically. But then after our match, I'm like, hey, I have a funny story to tell you afterwards. I'm like, let's go kill it here, and then I have a story. And then I told him about the story, and then he did remember the story. He might not have remembered me specifically, but to me, like that's such a cool
Yeah.
full circle moment. You know what I mean? So I can't have a favorite.
Okay.
Or okay, and also too, like I got to have a storyline with Ryan McBride, and I did an actual gender reveal for my second daughter live on pay per view.
That's amazing.
I, yeah, like how do you pick?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can't. I've just gotten to do a lot of cool stuff.
You mentioned being a father. What's it like being a father and a pro wrestler? How do you balance the two?
Well, I'm not sure if you guys can hear in the background or have heard earlier, but my kids have been screaming on and off because that's just what they do. They're 4 and 2. Um, how I balance it is my wife, because my wife understands that I'm still, I'm living my dream. Like wrestling is my full time job, and you know, if it wasn't for her support, I wouldn't be able to keep doing what I'm doing. So that's number one. But how I balance it is just knowing like I've said multiple times, like if I'm going to leave my house and if I'm going to take time away from my family, then it has to be for something that I deem value of my time. I've quit jobs before when I wasn't a full time wrestler. I've quit jobs because they took too much time away from my family, and I hated that job. And I get it. Jobs are jobs, and they got to pay the bills. But if you're taking time away from my family and and the money is not worth it, like no, it's not happening. So it's just finding the right balance and just knowing like, okay, is this worth it? Is this not worth it? But having a good support system from my wife is always, what's needed.
That's great. It's really cool to see families working together, especially when dreams are involved.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any dream match scenarios that you haven't got to fulfill yet?
Well, I have a gazillion,
Okay.
like I would love to work Randy Orton. I would love to work, all of these big names. You know, whether or not that's going to happen is, out of my hands. But guys on the independents or anything like that, no, I don't have any dream matches per se. I can't think of anything off the top of my head that I'm like, I want that one before like I hang up my boots by any means, because I think there's just a lot of people that I would love to get in the ring with, but when you put the pressure on it of like, okay, well, which ones do you want to bang out before like it's all said and done? Like that's a completely different story. But I'm also just very appreciative of the things that I've gotten to do. And there's a lot of times where like I roll out of the ring and I go, if that was my last one, I'm okay. If that was my last one, I'm okay. And you just have to appreciate the time that you have. And every time that I still get to do this at 37 years old, I've said this a lot recently. I said I'm nowhere near the 18th green, but I know that I'm on the back nine of my career. So you have to just appreciate every chance that you get. So I don't want to put those pressures on myself as well of like, man, well, who are some of your dream matches? Because if I don't get to do those, then it seems unsettled. Um, I'm just ready to get in there with anybody.
Okay. You've referenced it a couple times throughout the interview that you are a trainer, head
Mm-hmm.
trainer for House of Champions. How did you get to know Jamie Stanley and start working on House of Champions or join House of Champions?
So I met Jamie in catering during COVID. WWE had called me and booked me as an extra. So I flew from Pennsylvania to Florida, and then just so happened we were on the same show. And I had no idea who he was. Um, we just had a conversation in catering, and I was like, "Oh man, this guy's pretty cool. He's a very nice guy." And he was especially nice. He gave me a ride back to where I was staying, and wouldn't take my gas money. Um, but yeah, long story short, I told him at one point, like, "Yeah, I'm thinking about moving down here," and he's like, "Do it. You won't." And I was like, "Watch me." Like watch me do it. Like I know he was egging me on because him and his family had just moved from Michigan, so they had just done the same thing. Um, and then yeah, that was in August of 2020, and then I closed my wrestling school in Pennsylvania. I quit my job. I waited for my wife was pregnant, so I had to wait for the baby to pop out. And then we left in December of 2020, so only a couple months later, and we moved down. And then at one point, he had mentioned to me that he was thinking about opening up a gym, and he wants to put a wrestling ring inside of it. And he was asking me a lot of questions because I had a ring, and I was and Renee and Nick have done so much for my family. Before House of Champions even opened, that I was like, brother, if you have a gym, my ring belongs in your gym. You can use it. Like that's the least I can do. Um, which he was very much appreciative of. And then at one point, it was like, oh, I'm going to open up a wrestling school. I'm like, oh, I thought you were opening up a gym. And he's like, no, it's going to be a wrestling school. I was like, oh, damn. And then uh, at one point, he said, he was probably going to have Thomas Latimer be the head coach. And I was like, makes complete sense. Great guy, phenomenal shape, history. Like, of course, of course he would be. But then and Nick and I were having a lot of conversations when I would hang out with them, and it was almost like an interview process. And he would start asking me like, well, how did you do your curriculum? Or how did you do this? How did you do that? How do you balance this? How do you balance that? Like, because you already had a school, so you have experience with this. And I just kept giving him my answers. And I think, um, at just the point of they just figured out like, no, Kekoa is our guy. And then they offered me the position. And of course, like I was like, well, I got to check with the wife, but I'm sure like we were on. And, I couldn't be happier with the success that we've had in the past 2 years. We're coming up on our second anniversary in April. Um, but I couldn't be more fortunate or more blessed to for those two.
Do you have like, I use this word a lot, but do you have a favorite uh what's your favorite part about being a trainer and working with the students out Hass the Champions?
Watching them get it,
Okay.
watching them understand when it all starts clicking, and watching them get to live their dream and get to be in front of a crowd and just tear the house down and everything like that. So like if anybody goes on YouTube and looks up Legacy of Champions, it was our big event that we had at the end of last year. And everything built, like we started doing student shows in February, and it completely changed the dynamic 2 or 3 months in, because the kids wanted me to start kind of running the shows and producing them. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm very big on storylines, and we have to build stories because otherwise the matches mean nothing. And then the kids were having fun with the storylines. And then I was watching and listening to the audience that we would invite because we were doing free shows. And then just remember coming up with the idea of like, well, why don't we'll build to the end of the year, and then maybe we'll do a ticketed show. And we sold out. And everything was built to my one student, Patty, winning the title. And I was the one that he beat. It was a multi-man match, but it was elimination, and it came down to me and him. And I had built this storyline, me being the heel, so I could build him to be this big baby face, so that he could have his moment. And if anybody goes back and watches that, like that moment was so amazing when he finally beat me. And if anybody also notices, I think it's in the footage unless we cut it. But after he pinned me and I rolled out of the ring, I just sat by the commentators and just sat on the floor, and I just wanted to watch. And I just wanted to watch him like just have this moment, and just watching this sold out crowd, um, and watching this kid get to be champion and everything like that, and knowing like, well, this is all because of me. These were like, I wrote the storylines, I built this match, I built up to here. Like, this is all something to be proud of. And again, that's where another thing of like, well, what's your favorite match? What's your favorite moment, brother? I have too many. I have way too many to pick from. And that was to me like it's just another like, like if I wish I could have a trophy for it so I could put it on the wall. You know what I mean? But that's just something that I'll always remember.
That's spectacular. Is it something like that you guys plan to do every year? Like every year, do the free shows and then do a ticketed one at the end to kind of blow
So
everything off?
because of the success that we had with that one, we decided to do 3 ticketed events this year.
Okay.
We were going to do once a quarter, and then I don't remember why we changed it to 3 times. I forget what the scheduling was. I think maybe had something to do with Mania. I can't remember. Um, but yeah, that's right, because April is the fourth month, and then we wanted to try to have a show the week of Mania so that people would be like, excited, like it's Mania week and there's another show going on, blah blah blah. So that's why we're doing 3 a year. But April will be our next ticketed event, and then August, and then December. All the other shows are reservations, kind of like what NXT does, so they're free. All you have to do is just go and reserve your seat. Uh, but I know without a shadow of a doubt that we're going to sell out in April, and I know without a shadow of a doubt then August and December are going to follow. And in December, we're actually hoping to get outside of our school because our school can only hold so much. So I think we're looking to get a building and try to sell like 500 tickets for that one. So good
Okay,
goal for the year.
that's nice. Okay, man, I want to say thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. Um, I do this too often, not too often, but I do this all the time. If you'd like to come back on to talk more about your career, I'd love to have you on, maybe for a part two.
Yes, sir. Anytime.
Before we go, I know we did at the beginning of the show, but would you like to shout out your social medias again, just in case they missed it?
Yeah, so anybody that's listening, I am at Kekoa Pro on all platforms, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, Kekoa, and then Pro. Very easy to find. And hope you all enjoy the stupidness of my life. It's funny.
Thank you. Thank you so much, man. I loved it. It was a great time. Um, I'm excited to see what happens next, especially with House of Champions. It seems like y'all got a really growing brand there, and I'm excited to see what comes next.
Yeah, man, I'm excited. Big show coming up April 17th. So I'm excited for it. So it'll be on you. If nobody can, if nobody is, or anybody that's listening to this, excuse me, that's not in the Florida area that can't make it, it'll be on YouTube soon after. It usually takes about a week for us to get our episodes up.
Sounds good. I will just leave this off at see you next time then.
Thank you, sir.